Good afternoon. Sunday afternoon. Is everybody or anybody going to be here? Because I don't normally do this on a Sunday. And I'm doing something different. I've got a Commodore 64 out. Got the old Commodore 64 out because I've been messing with it. And I've got some beer. It's actually shandy, don't tell anyone. And I've got a cup of tea. I've got both. Got a bit of both. Let's see if anybody turns up. I think when you do live streams and you do them out of hours, nobody shows up. They're like, who's this guy? What's going on? Why am I not outside drinking beer? Why am I not drinking the beer? But, yeah, I thought I'd mess about with the Commodore 64 and show what I've done, but show what I've done and show what doesn't work on it. Show what doesn't work. Let's see if anybody shows up first, because if nobody shows up, I'm just talking to the recording machine. And you can't see the screen, but in the meantime, I can put some mods on. C64 mods. Well, they're not really mods. SID tunes mods? I suppose so. But you can't see the screen, and that's part of the problem. Cannot see the screen. But we'll get to that. Whilst we listen to Robocop 3. What else are you going to do on a Sunday afternoon, apart from listen to Robocop 3 tune? Which I never played, but this is an awesome tune. In fact, I don't even know if this game's any good. It's Retro JB. It's a surprise Sunday stream. And it's not an Amiga, it's a Commodore 64. And you can't see the screen. Well, you will be able to see the screen, but I'm going to have to point the camera at it, and there's a good reason for that. I'll show you why in a bit. I'm going to have to point the camera at the screen. In fact, it is capturing in the bottom. If you look in the bottom right of the screen right now, it is capturing, but it's saying no signal. It's Mr. Charles 65. Hi, Dave. I'm around, but it might be a bit fleeting because I have to do things. Yeah, I'm not going to stream for very long. I just wanted to show people what I've done with the Commodore 64, really. But what I was trying to do, I'll wait till a few more people turn up because it probably won't take long to show. But yeah, I was just going to show what I've done with the LumaCode mod, which I've been messing with. Which is a great little thing, but the reasons that I bought it are not working for me at the moment, but that's not because it doesn't work. But yeah, the Commodore 64's got... I like the Commodore 64, but the problem with it is that because I've been using the Amiga, and Amiga's got its RGB out and everything. It's got analog RGB out, and it gets picked up dead well by this OSSC thing, and gets upscaled, and it looks great, and I can stream it, and I can see it on the monitor and everything. So I want the same thing for the Commodore 64, because the Commodore 64 output is shockingly bad, and there's loads of lag on these little devices you get. So I've been wanting a way to get better output from it that I can actually look at and I can stream. And that's when I discovered this LumaCode stuff. I don't know if anyone's heard of LumaCode. Maybe I'll pop the link in the description, in the chat. LumaCode. For C64, let's have a look. I'll put the link in for the C64. But essentially what it is... Oop, there's a link to it. Essentially, all it is it's a little device... Oh, you've not heard of it? It's quite... I think it's reasonably new. Some Austrian guys made it. But it's a really good idea. What it is that the C64 doesn't produce RGB output. Or it doesn't produce a digital output or even a really good analog output at all. It produces S-video basically. So it produces like luminance and chroma. And then the little modulator box converts that into composite or whatever. And you can get an okay-ish output, but everything I've tried, it looks terrible. And it looks different on different Commodore 64s. Some of them are dead blown out and some of them aren't. And the boxes that you use to do it are all lag. But what this thing does, in fact, I've got one here because I got two. I got two and I've got another one to fit. I'll show you what it is. I'm going to put my anti-static wrist strap on so I don't destroy anything. It's a teeny tiny little thing. And it's a dead easy mod to fit as well. Hang on. Let's see if we can get it on the camera. It's that. That's all it is. So what it is it's just a little board that... Is that in focus? Can't tell. It's a little board that sits in between the motherboard and the VIC-2 chip. Right, so you take the VIC-2 chip out, you pop that in, and then you stick the VIC-2 chip back in on top. And then you see these two little prongs here. That's where you get the output. And the output is actually digital. It's kind of like a luminance signal, but it's digitally encoded. It's 2-bit digital, so it's like a bit stream. So what the chip's doing is it's listening to what the VIC-2 does, and it's instead of it, it's basically interpreting what the VIC-2's doing right now, and then turning it into the 16 values that this Commodore 64 produces color, and then it kind of bangs those down this cable. And then something else can decode that and turn it back into the picture. So it doesn't actually know how to generate a picture, it just knows how to reinterpret what the VIC-2 was doing and turn that into a digital signal. But something else would have to turn that into video, if you know what I mean. And it's dead easy to put in because it's just got two wires, and they're just wired into the... Like, you cut the wire on the RF modulator, and it's just wired into the back of that. So those two wires just go out to the RF modulator. I'm just using the RF modulator. In fact, let me get the... So the RF modulator out there, that's sending out it's basically a digital signal. So that's all fine. So that's dead easy to fit. The only thing I'd had to do though was I actually had to, well, kind of, yeah, it is solderless. You can do it solderless, but the problem was when I took the VIC-2 out, and that thing just wouldn't go. It went in the socket. It's a socket that Commodore had installed, and it just didn't make a good connection. The sockets, it's one of those single wipe sockets, and it was garbage. So in the end, I had to take the socket out and put a different one in. But if you've got a decent socket in there, it probably works. It wasn't even getting any voltage. Sometimes it didn't get voltage, and sometimes it was 0.7 volts. But yeah, ideally, you don't have to. In theory, you can install it without soldering anything. All you'd have to do is cut one wire in the RF modulator and it would work, but I had to take the socket. I think the socket's in the bin. I'll show you the crappy socket. I put it in the bin. Yeah, it's in the bin here. Absolute... Oh, I don't know if you'd be able to see that. It's one of these single wipe sockets, but it just didn't work. Like, it didn't make a good enough connection. So I had to take it out. So that was like the longest part of it for me, was taking the socket out and just putting a new one in. And then it worked perfectly. But in theory, yeah, it's solderless. So you do that, and then you need something to take that signal, which they're calling LumaCode. It's like a protocol of like... So it kind of looks like a... It looks like a luminance signal. It's got a sync for luminance, and the value is like 4 levels of... it's up to 1 volt, but it's like 4 levels, so it gives you 2 bits. And then you just need something that can interpret that. And the OSSC, which is... Let me try and get the OSSC on the thing. This thing, I don't know if you know what an OSSC is. It's a bit blown out there. There it is. You can turn the light off. How do you turn the light off? Backlight on off. Boop. It's just got a massive, like, blown out thing. But the OSSC the latest firmware of that, or version 1 firmware and above, can decode LumaCode and display it on the screen as like a perfect digital picture. And then the only problem with that one is that if you've got one of the older OSSCs, you have to do a mod on that, which is, it's just installing a wire, so it's not very hard. You have to take a resistor off that's down there and then wire it up to one of the pins. And after that, you can upgrade the firmware. So I had to do that as well. But you can see that, I think you can see, it's... Can you see on the screen? Yeah, so it's picking up the Commodore 64 signal, 15 kilohertz, 312p, 50 hertz. So that's picking up the signal that's coming out of this Commodore 64. It's wired into one of the component jacks, and it can understand that. So that's good. And that's good, and I'll kind of show you, but let me just point. I'll point this at the screen now, because then you can see what I'm looking at. Oop, the microphone's standing in the way. Gotcha. Yeah, let's get the microphone out of the way. Right. Now, I'll zoom right in. But look how good that is. Oh my god. I mean, it's running on the camera there, but let's get a bit with some... yeah, because it's a proper digital output, so it's been properly upscaled by the OSSC. And you get a proper digital output from it. So let me go back. So you have to mess about with some settings from the OSSC, but it looks brilliant. I love it. Absolutely love it. Like, it's... Because I'm so sick of looking at the Commodore 64 as this blurry mess that's blown out and all this kind of stuff. So that's really great. It looks amazing. So you need an OSSC that's got version 1 firmware or above, and you can mod the older OSSC that's version 0 to become a version 1. It just needs one wire. Is that a camera? Is that a camera? When you say a camera? Yeah, you're looking at the screen through a camera, and there's a reason for that, which I'll get to in a minute. This is just a Sony camera with a zoom. But yeah, look at that, it's brilliant. I'll put a game on in a minute and you'll see. Let's have a different tune. Different Turrican. So yeah, the video output's great, but there are some problems with it. I don't think there's any problem with the LumaCode itself. There's a problem with the OSSC and how it's upscaling and stuff like that. But it may or may not be a problem. It depends on what other equipment you've got. So one of the problems is that you have to put it in a certain mode, and that means it's clipping off the top and bottom of the screen a little bit on this 1080p monitor. And that's because I've had to set it to output this 1080p signal with a bit clipped off, because this monitor can't produce... I think it really wants to produce like a 1200p image, but this monitor can't display it at all. So you just get a black screen. So that's the first problem, is that there's a bit of the picture cut off at the top and the bottom. And to be honest, you don't notice in almost everything, because the Commodore 64 doesn't use the top and the bottom. So the top is up on the monitor there, and the bottom's right there, and it's fine for most stuff. But you can put some games on, and there'll be stuff clipped off the top and the bottom. I think we're missing about... Oh, it's probably missing about 40 lines, which most of it doesn't get used, but some of it does. I think on NTSC it doesn't get used, but on PAL it might get used. So that's the problem. But other than that, what I'm looking at here looks amazing. It looks absolutely brilliant. And you can even like put the fake scan lines on if you really want it. You can adjust those. But I don't know if you noticed at the top right of the screen, it says no signal, and that's the next problem. The actual output that the OSSC does, because you have to put it in this 5 times mode, which produces this like weird signal. This little capture, it's basically a non-standard HDMI signal, which even says most monitors can pick that up, which this one's obviously doing. Most things will do it, but the capture box just can't do it, and there's no mode I can put it in. Well, there is one mode I can put it in where the capture box will capture it, but then I can't get the picture decoded correctly. So that's where I'm up to. I really wanted something where I could like look at like this, and I could live stream, and then I could do Commodore 64 live streams, and you can get the good picture, and I can get the good picture. But right now, all I've got is I've got a really good picture. It's a bit clipped off in some games. I think one game actually, and the capture box has got no picture at all, which is pretty annoying. But other than that, it's brilliant. But you don't have to use an OSSC. It's just I'm using it because I've got one. There is an RGB to HDMI, which I think could probably decode it correctly. I'm not sure, or decode it better. Something that my capture box could actually understand. But I think basically the problem is it's outputting something that's a bit non-standard, and most things are fine with it. But you know, it's like too many lines or not enough lines for 1080p. So that's the problem. There's your problem. What else have we got? Let's put the Zybex themes on. This is a really good one. But yeah, I'll show you what you can do. In fact, I'll load in what you get if you just, when you kind of get the default settings from OSSC, I'll show you what you get. Let me load those. Here we go. Wait for it. All right. So, this is interesting. So this is what you get if you just like when you just plug it into an OSSC kind of out of the box. This is what it actually sees, and weirdly, it can understand this. It can actually pick it up, but obviously it's completely incorrect. And there's no way I can get it so that it will output this, but actually also be the correct picture. I just don't think there's any way of doing it. But you can see what it's actually doing is that this digital signal is being interpreted as like a composite signal. And I think the lines that you can see vertically is actually the digital information. There's only a few colours in this, so it's a bit weird. But you have to kind of like... How's the C64 connected to the OSSC? It's got... No, you basically take just a single... Let me... hang on. Let me point down at the C64. Zip. Down here. Down there. Hang on. Wait a minute. It's a bit of a weird stream, this, isn't it? It's just that. It's just I'll show you. It's just a phono cable. That's it. That's the whole thing. So the output is it's wired into the RF jack. I've just repurposed the RF jack, which can never do RF anymore. I'm not doing anything with RF. And this is just a phono cable, and that goes into the center component output on the OSSC. And then you set the OSSC up for LumaCode, basically. The 1.0 firmware can understand LumaCode. And you notice I've still got to have this plugged in, which would actually, you can actually get the normal output as well. So it doesn't stop the normal output from working. Everything still works, except for RF output, which now becomes LumaCode. The normal output totally still works, and I'm having to use it because I need to get the audio from that, which you can send into the OSSC as well. That's why you can hear it. So yeah, you can technically run two monitors on this. You can run a LumaCode one, and you can run composite or S-video from that as well, if you wanted to. But yeah, once you've upgraded the firmware, you get... Is it clipped off? It's slightly clipped off on the screen, isn't it? You get... Yeah, you get this option for LumaCode down here. So the LumaCode's turned off at the moment. So even with LumaCode off, it's actually interpreted that as a composite signal or component signal. So you turn that on, and look, it's kind of got some colour now, but it's not quite right. So there's loads of messing about you've got to do, but the problem is that in this mode, it just, like, once you change it out of this output mode, yeah, it's this top one here, it's in line 2x mode. It needs to be in line 5x mode for it to work. But once you do that, it actually, you can't get my capture box can't pick it up anymore. So that's the problem. Like, I changed this to 5x. Wait for it. I don't think it's going to give it. So now I can't see it, and it's not capturing as well. So we've got both problems now. me show you. So now I've got two problems. Now I can't see it. I can't see it and it's not being captured. So let's change that back to 2x for a minute. So I can see it again. Oop, there we go. So that's the only this is the only way I can get pictures on both. Basically, I think a different capture box might be able to understand it, but this one can't. This 5x mode has to be changed to 384 by 240 optimized. Oh, you probably can't see that. I'm on there. 384 by 240 optimized. And then I can change this to line 5x. It's 5 times all the pixels, I believe. And then I get this. so it's a bit crazy, but let me get this out of the way here. It's quite hard to get this on the screen. Oop. So it's not quite right, but it starts to get closer and closer. But you notice that the capture's gone now. The capture box now can no longer understand this. And then what else do you have to do? You have to like change these sampling options or something. It's all really quite esoteric. So this is set up. I think that 512, that you can't see it, but it says 512 sample rate. I think that's for NTSC. You change it to 504. This is like the number of cycles it has to go across for PAL. And then you get a picture that's kind of right, but it's got the wrong colours. And then you have to change this sampling phase. Again, I don't think you can see this, but there's a sampling phase thing that's set to 180 degrees. And you set that closer to 0. And boom, you get a picture. And then it's got a bit of like noise on it, and you can correct that. I think there's just, depending on how good your cables are, I think you can correct that by changing some of these other numbers. But there we go. I've got an absolutely perfect picture there. But I can't capture it. That's my problem. Cannot capture the picture to stream, that is. But it looks great. It looks absolutely great. There's the Last Ninja 2 tune. Even it's funny though, because even the actual camera pointing at the screen, I think actually looks better than the capture that comes out of that comes directly into a capture box out of the composite video or whatever. It's absolutely bonkers. But there's my problem. Like, I've got a really good output. I can't capture it with the capture box that I've got. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. So there you go. So those are my woes. The other thing is that it's actually, again, if I had a monitor that could support like 1200 lines, I think it'd be fine. But this is having to be converted to 1080p, and then it's skipping a bit at the top and the bottom. Like I said, most of the time you don't notice. But if I load a game, I think I've got somewhere on here. I think I've got, it's Creatures 2, which makes use of like the top and bottom borders, and you'll maybe see it on this. Wish I could make some helpful suggestions. Oh no, well, I'm not really looking for suggestions. I'm just looking to show you what I've done, really. I mean, I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's anything I can do, because a different monitor would pick up the picture correctly, and a different capture box might be able to understand the thing it's outputting. But I don't think there's any setting or anything I can do to make it work. I think an RGB to HDMI might work as well. Right, so this game, I noticed, this is where I've got to get the whole screen on. Let's get this mic stand out of the way. Oh, I can't get it out of the way. So it looks fine there. So you think this is fine? This is fine. It looks so much better in real life. Wow, 1992. This was their last game before they did. Oh, look at that. Massive sprites. Right, so I think you can't quite see it, but the text is off the bottom of the screen here. Let me raise this camera. Yeah, so there's stuff cut off the bottom of the screen here, and that's because this is basically producing. What is it doing? It's upscaling it to something like 1200p, but then the monitor's putting it in 1080, and then it's just clipping the top and the bottom. And most of the time that's fine, like I said on the Commodore 64, but in this game it's not, because there's stuff down there, and when the game starts. Not only is the stuff down there, there's supposed to be like at the top of the screen, there's supposed to be a sun here, and it's not there. So this is actually cutting off quite a lot of the screen, enough to that there's actually stuff that appears down here to select your weapon, and you can't really do it. It's still kind of playable, and this is the only game that's really got a problem with it. But it just makes you realise that I'd need a different monitor to display this correctly. I'm starting to play the game now, but you can't really see it properly. It'd be good to see what you find out though. Yes, it's an amazing picture. I still use a CRT screen, so unless I can use it via SCART, I'm not sure I can use it. I don't think this isn't that much use to you for CRTs really. If you've got a CRT, your output's probably really good anyway, because you've basically got a lag-free output. Look at this. But when you want to use a flat panel, no, I don't have any CRTs, and I really don't want to maintain any or anything. Look at that. It's quite good. Yeah, when you've got like a flat panel, the output from the Commodore 64 just looks garbage. So that's the problem. But yeah, this is no use to you for a CRT, I think. But I really wanted something that I could look at nicely, which I've already done. I've got like loads of I've been playing this loads, and do you know what? The lag-free thing. This is the other thing. This is 100% lag-free. So the LumaCode introduces no lag, and the OSSC introduces no lag. And I was playing Creatures 1 today to test it out, and I got to level 2 in one attempt, and I was like, I haven't done that for so long. Every time I've tried, it's been terrible, and I realised it's because there's not that like 50 or 100 milliseconds of lag that these crappy scalers are introducing. And these games are so like critical with all the jumps and stuff that that's enough to like ruin the game for you. Oh, look at this. It was more the RGB quality I'd be after. Yeah, yeah, I don't know if there's any way of like you could take the LumaCode and then output it to a CRT. You might be able to. I don't know if there's, you'd need a different decoder, so you wouldn't be able to use the OSSC for that. But I don't know what RGB to HDMI does. That only produces HDMI anyway. So you need something that does LumaCode to VGA, I suppose. Is that what the monitor is? The CRT? But yeah, you'd need something that converts it. But I suppose that's the good thing about LumaCode is that the guy's got the protocol that's just this like bit thing, and if you've got something that can interpret it, it can then turn it into whatever you want. So yeah, in theory, you could turn it into a really good CRT picture, I suppose. But you'd have to decide what you want to output to, like a VGA monitor or something. I don't know. The OSSCs, saying that, once you've got HDMI, you could turn that into VGA and go into a VGA monitor. A VGA is like CRT monitor. But yeah, that's where it is then. So I was looking forward to doing some live streams of Commodore 64, but as you can see, it won't work. It just won't work. Which is, well, it will work, but it's a bit annoying. But yeah, if you look up the LumaCode thing, like I said, the LumaCode won't produce a picture. You need something else connected to it that can produce the picture. And in my case, I'm trying out the OSSC because I've already got one. So that's it. But the picture on this flat screen looks brilliant. Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. I've not seen a C64 look good. It does, I've got to say, it does look like an emulator, but what can you say? What day is it? It's Sunday. It's Sunday. But yeah, so those are my woes, is that this thing works really well, but I can't live stream with it. So that's the problem. So I've got nothing. The LumaCode's worked amazingly. It just looks great. Like, I'm sick of the fuzzy, horrible output on the Commodore 64. And then it was also the fact that, like I said, sometimes I'd get these boxes and they'd just start changing the colours, and then they'd start blowing out the picture and stuff like that. And I was just like, and they introduced lag, which is the worst part. So this is like got no lag at all. And the colours look wrong on the camera actually, but they're right on the screen. That Ghouls and Ghosts look purple on the camera, but it's actually blue on the screen. Is it coming out in mono? Oh, are you getting the? I think you're getting the sound in one ear. Maybe. But you can fix that on the OSSC as well. I think. Where's the audio options? You can turn mono on. There you go. Sorry, if you were listening on headphones, you were getting everything in one ear. Seems like your live stream. Well, I am live streaming it, but I'm having to point the camera at the screen. But the top right on the screen now is the capture. It's the capture box plugged in to what you should be seeing. But as you can see, it says no signal. It doesn't. These capture boxes don't understand the signal. So there might be another capture box that can do it. And if there is, I can live stream the Commodore 64. But I think also, ideally, I need a different monitor, because I suppose it's possible there are some other games where you're going to clip the top and the bottom off, but it's only at Creatures 2 that's using the overscanned bit that I can see so far. There might be another one here and there. But I am live streaming it. But I'll have to ask, maybe if I can post a comment on the OSSC thing to see if there's any way to get this to work. If this would work in that 2x mode, if you could get LumaCode to work in the 2x mode, it would work. But unfortunately, I can't. So the 2x mode, in fact, if I just reset it, I've just turned it off. I'm just going to go back to, let's see what it does. Yeah, there you go. So now you can see it's wrong on both, but it's being captured now. There's the capture. So there's no way of me getting that. Yeah, if I could get the LumaCode to work correctly in this mode, then I'd be cooking on gas. But as it stands, it doesn't work. So LumaCode's off there. Oh, this is wrong. This is a C64C, and this music's not right on this one. It's missing some sounds. So there's that. And yeah, there's not really a lot else you can do. You're kind of just left with something that's not working. Oh no, that's not it. You can do one more thing. You can correct this, I think. Let's try this. So I've got it close to working with the 2x mode, but it doesn't work basically. I have to change this sample thing by horizontal sample rate by 500, which takes ages on the remote control. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Come on. Nearly there. So this is the problem with old stuff and new equipment. This is what the problem is here. Old stuff, new equipment. What's this going to do? And no signal. I've got no signal on the monitor as well now. So you see, I'm having real trouble actually getting it to work on both. A different monitor might pick this up. I don't know. Let's just reset it. What I'm actually doing, Mr. Star, I am demonstrating the LumaCode mod for the Commodore 64. Hang on. Let me just load the actual correct settings. And I will demonstrate them again. So I'm loading the correct settings that gives me this really good output on the C64. Look at the screen. This looks brilliant, but my capture card can't understand it. So yeah, what it is, where's the little mod? I'll go through it again. But yeah, basically I've got like a really nice, I've got a really like good output on the Commodore 64. None of that fuzzy stuff. Oh, it's gone back to mono again, hasn't it? Because I turned it off. Let me get the. Turn it. It's gone back to light. There we go. I will demonstrate. I'll go back from the start once more. I have an old C64, the breadbin one, and getting it connected to new monitor TVs has put me off looking at it. If this could be patched into HDMI, it would look good. Well, yeah, that's the whole point of it. You put this in, and then you get something that turns it into HDMI, either an RGB to HDMI, or in my case, I'm using an OSSC. Let's there's part of the game. But it's difficult to show it to you because I can't capture it, and that's the problem. But the output is like, it's perfect. So it might work with an Elgato. It's possible. If the Elgato, basically the Elgato needs to be able to understand kind of a non-standard a digital signal, and if it does, then it's probably good. Yeah, so what it is you take the video chip out of your Commodore 64 and you stick this in. It's just a little board, and then the video chip just sticks in the top. So that's all you have to do. Take your video chip out, stick this in, and then you stick the VIC-2 in the top. So it just sits in between the motherboard and the VIC-2. And then these two little prongs here, you can see them, that's where the digital signal comes out. And it's not like a HDMI signal or anything like that. And it's not an RGB signal. It's something different. The guys called it LumaCode. But basically what it is it's a 2-bit digital signal that you then wire into the jack on the, in my case, I've just wired it into I've cut the RF mod. You know, the RF modulator. I've cut that and I've just wired it into that. And then you just take a standard, you just take a standard phono jack, and then you can like take that digital signal that's being banged down this cable and plug it into something that can understand it. So the OSSC, the new version of it, can understand this like LumaCode protocol that's being generated by this. So this is like sniffing the actual digital information from the computer that the VIC-2 would be using to make the video signal, and it's generating its own instead. So yeah, then the OSSC's got to turn that digital signal into the actual picture. So you don't have to use an OSSC, you could use something else. So it's actually just sending, the digital information it's sending is actually like a sync signal and something that looks a bit like the luminance signal, but then it's actually just sending the 16 numbers that are just the 16 colors. So it just sends like a 1, a 5, a 6, and at the right time. And this is crashed. Something's crashed here. That's not related to the mod. I think it's crashed. I think this back bit thing crashes. Where's my screen? I can't see the screen. I don't think that's related to this. I don't think it's related to the mod. I think it's related to this Commodore 64 or something. Or this monitor is not picking it up. Oh, there it is. See, I took the cartridge out and it works. It does say basic and everything, but you can't see it because it's zoomed in. I think this cartridge sometimes doesn't work. I scrubbed a load of dirt out of it before. Come on, cartridge. You can do it. There we go. Suddenly it works. So let's just put the but yeah, you can see there it just looks amazing. So I just wish I could capture that, and then I could stream Commodore 64 stuff, and we could all have a nice picture, because that'll look great when it's captured. The current output looks, like I said, looks terrible. So that's all it does. It basically sits in between the motherboard and the VIC-2 chip. It generates a new kind of protocol that this guy's invented. He's called it LumaCode, but it's basically just a 2-wire signal that's just sending like the number of the color at the right time. You plug it into something like an RGB to HDMI or an OSSC that can interpret it and turns it into upscaled, you know, HDMI or whatever. And this mod doesn't stop the normal output from working. You can run that as well, and you need to plug something in to run the audio anyway, because this mod doesn't produce any audio. It just changes the digital output. So it doesn't stop your Commodore 64 from working the way it did before. It just allows you to have another output. So hopefully that makes some sense. But when I zoom in, you can just see how like you can see the pixels on the screen here. It's just crazy. But it's basically a perfect output. But it's got a bit clipped off because of my monitor and the capture card. I can't pick it up. But it's brilliant. I love it. And the mod's not very expensive. It's like 35 quid or something, 30 quid, something like that. And it shouldn't be hard to fit, but I had to change the VIC-2 socket because the one that was there, it was a crap Commodore one, and it just wouldn't work. So that was the unfortunate bit. But I plugged it in, and the whole computer didn't work. And I measured the voltage on the chip, and it was like 0.7 volts instead of 5. I was like, oh god. So I changed the socket, and it worked perfectly. I don't have an OSSC, so if it could go through an adapter, that would do the trick. You can use RGB to HDMI. I don't know how much they are, but I didn't try that because I've got an OSSC, so I thought I'd try that. Look on the site. You only need a $6 lead, and then be able to connect it to an RGB to HDMI adapter. Yeah, I don't. The lead's just 2 wires, so I wouldn't know you'd need anything. But doesn't RGB to HDMI also need a Raspberry Pi or something? RGB to HDMI. And to be fair, the RGB to HDMI might work with my capture box. How much are those things? RGB to HDMI. But the guy who makes these sells those as well, but I just didn't want to get involved with that because I don't know anything about it. And oh yeah, so you probably need that and a Raspberry Pi, but that's just another thing that I thought I don't need because I've got an OSSC. But as you can see, it's just so good, but so not good because it's not the fault of this capture box, I think, really. The OSSC is producing basically a non-standard output, so you couldn't complain about it saying it didn't pick up the non-standard output. It's like, well, it's not required to. I mean, and this monitor isn't required to do it either, but most monitors try and interpret whatever they can, I think, and get it on the screen somehow. So this Dell monitor's decided, okay, I can deal with that, but the Ava Media box has said, nah, don't know what that is, throw it out. Throw it out, don't like it. This driller theme is brilliant as well. So yeah, there it is. So that's LumaCode. So I thought, oh, I'll get this working. Because there's a guy on YouTube, I can't remember which guy it is, but he's got like I'm going to install a HDMI video mod in a Commodore 64 in 60 seconds. And in theory, he does do that, but it took me over an hour because I had to replace the socket. And then you'll spend longer, if you've got an OSSC, you'll spend longer messing about with that. But maybe the RGB to HDMI is just much better for it. But I'm also trying to stream, so that's my problem. Like, if I wasn't streaming, this setup's done, it's finished. or if you're not capturing or whatever. So that's the problem. Oh, and there's the wire. They give you a wire with it as well. So the idea is you just plug this wire. He gives you this as well with the thing. That just plugs into the little board that's in the Commodore 64, and it even puts like little crocodile clips on there. So you don't really have to solder anything. You can actually just clip these inside the RF modulator if you want to. But I soldered them in because I just thought I don't want this thing coming out. But yeah, you don't have to. All you have to do is cut the wire inside the RF modulator, which I've got to be fair, I've never used because I'm not plugging it. That's the worst output of them all. It's even worse than the composite. So I'm never using that ever again. And this thing, yeah, I just clipped my, that's the crocodile clips. I just clipped them off and soldered it in instead. But yeah, that's fine because this Commodore 64 still works the same. It still works as a normal Commodore 64 if you don't use that RF mod. Or the LumaCode mod. Works fine. So that's it. I just wish... and I've been playing a bit of Commodore 64 over the last day when I've been doing it. And it's like, oh, this is really good. I played through like level on creatures and I was playing this and you start going, I'll just test this game out. And you're like, oh, this is brilliant. And you keep playing it. But yeah, I was so sick of the... I was so sick of this... I'll show you what I've got. It's like a terrible box. So yeah, this is how I had to do it before. This will still work if I wanted to. I just bought one of these. It's like 10 quid on Amazon. And it just takes composite and it's got left and right audio. And then it outputs HDMI. And this works. This will produce output from the Commodore 64, but it's like I said, it's different on every Commodore 64, and it's dead blown out on one and not on the other. And it must have loads of lag on it because I'm like playing these games so much better on this than I was on this thing. I don't know how much lag's on it, but this technically, if I plug this in now, would actually work. But I'd have to like hook it into the computer so you can stream it. But yeah, you can run both of these outputs at the same time if you want to. There's nothing stopping you. But yeah, I mean, this was like really cheap. But the output looks horrible. It looks absolutely horrible. Ghana is some random make, isn't it? It's like, it works though. It works. So that's it. I like it. I actually really like it. Look at that. It's just incredible. It's absolutely incredible. You can't believe that's a Commodore 64. In theory, that if you think about it, that's what the developers of the Commodore 64 were trying to output. That's what they were trying to output. But it's not what you got. So I don't know if I can put let's put a game on or something. I was playing it. I was like looking at Cybernoid 2 before. There's a lot of these backbit collection games. Hang on. Is this in here? Here it is. There we go. It just looks amazing. Ooh. Sharper than a hot knife through butter. You said it. And then you could just say, well, am I just emulating here? And it's a funny one, isn't it? It's like, none of this is emulated, but the VIC-2 is now not producing the colours. The OSSC is producing the colours. So you have to tell it, it's when you do the LumaCode, you have to say this is a C64. Because it also, you can also, this is supported on Spectrum, Amstrad, C128, loads of other 8-bit stuff. Is the sound coming through the OSSC? Yes, it is. Yeah. So there's an audio output that I normally use on the left-hand side of the OSSC, but there's a little button and you can turn it into an audio input. So I'm still having to use the, you know, the other cables, the normal cables in the C64, and I'm just piping it into the OSSC. So yeah, in theory, if it was capturing the video, you'd be getting what you're seeing on the camera here, but you'd be getting it through the stream. I still think the camera looks better than the than what you'd get through the composite output. It's crazy. It's absolutely, it just looks amazing on the screen though. The rocky can's fallen over. Oop, let's go in. It just gets a bit blown out by the... It just looks brilliant. Yeah, it looks better on the camera than it does on the capture. But yeah, I think when I was streaming, what was it I was doing? It was the last thing I did on the Commodore 64 was probably the Trivial Pursuit, but the colours on it were wrong, and it was like blowing out the image, like over brightening it, and there's nothing I could do about it. Yeah, it's absolutely, it's as crisp as you like. It just looks, it does look a bit rubbish on the thing, but the monitors, you might say it just looks like an emulator, but ultimately it's not being emulated, but this is what they wanted it to look like. But the technology at the time couldn't do it. There's more processing power in all this stuff I plugged it into than there is in the Commodore 64. And it's funny because I think you do get, the VIC-2 has actually got, it's actually got timing problems with the RAM, where it's actually reading stuff out of the RAM as it's being changed, I think. And you get little sparkles on the screen sometimes. And I think this thing is also still picking up the sparkles, because sometimes I see it and it's like, oh, it's got little bits are appearing on the screen, and I realise I think that's the RAM timing problem on the Commodore 64. So it's just reading what the VIC-2 would have read. So it's getting it wrong, basically. I don't think you'd see an emulator doing the sparkles. Maybe, I'm not sure. But yeah, there it is. There it is. It's... It's still tilted. I'll have to sort that out. Yeah, so it's great. So I like it, but I was going to do some Commodore 64 streams, and I can't. So I'm disappointed. So I don't know what to do about that. A different capture card might fix it, or I could buy an RGB to HDMI with the hope that that works, but I don't really want to buy an extra thing just for that. But then you'd have to buy an extra thing anyway, because I don't think the Amiga Media would ever be able to pick the signal. Or I could talk to the people who do the OSSC and say, look, is there any way to make this work in this 2x mode? Because you know, 2x is like going to work on everything. There's 2x upscaling. It works on everything, but I can't get the LumaCode to show correctly. So that's my only other option. There we go. LumaCode. It works. It totally works. So I think I'll leave it there. And there won't... Well, I could still do some Commodore 64 strings, but I want to get... If I get this resolved, I can do some more. Because I've been really enjoying playing some of these games that are on this back bit. Many of which I don't own, though. The back bit cartridge is just like... They've got a download for stuff that works on it. And it's just... It's not every game on the Commodore 64, but it's lots of games. And it's sometimes a bit crashy, this cartridge. There's the original Cybernoid. Oh, there's the sparkles. You probably didn't see those, but the sparkles were on the screen there. This text looks horrible, but I think it probably looks horrible on the original. They've done this like thing where they've coloured all the font. This probably looked better on a CRT, which blurred it out, but it's horribly unreadable on the actual monitor. In fact, it looks better on the camera than it does on the screen. I think it was probably blurred out a bit by the original CRT. So there are cases where this pixel perfect image is probably not going to help you as much, but there's not many. I noticed they didn't do this in Cybernoid 2. They didn't do this horrible font. Yeah, that's more readable on the camera than it is on the screen because they've picked two different colours in the font. Okay, so we're going to stop there, but that's it. That's the LumaCode mod, which is absolutely fantastic, and it works on loads of other stuff. Spectrum, Amstrad. Oh, I don't know what else it might work on. The NES it works on, not the SNES, the NES. I think there's like 8 or 9 computers that it works on. So it's very good, and I've been wanting a really nice output from the Commodore 64 for so long. N64, I don't think so. Let me just check what it says what it works on. They've got a version for Atari 8-bit, NES, Intellivision, C16 plus 4, the 2600, the ColecoVision and MSX, the ZX Spectrum, the Master System, the C64, the C128, and the VIC-20. So currently it works on all those. It might add support for more in the future. Each board's slightly different, I think. So they're not always the same. So the SNES one does need some. The NES one does need a little bit of soldering. I don't think you're going to see this work for anything that's got lots of colours in the palette, like the Amiga, for instance. The Amiga's got pretty good output anyway, so it wouldn't. I don't think it'd work on the Amiga because it's got to output such a high bit rate to get all the colours that it might not be able to support it. I think he said it's like it can do like 45 megabit or something. So if you can get your colours in that, it's all right. But the Commodore 64 has only got 16 colours, so you have to send. He only has to send 2 lots of data to get the colours. But on the Amiga, you'd have to send like 12 or something or more. So it just starts getting a lot worse. And then your box has got to interpret all the colours, so it's got to have a colour palette. So you probably only see it on these 8-bit things, I think. But yeah, but the specky and all that, I'd be able to do it. In fact, what does the OS... Ooh, what is this? Let me just quickly... I'll show you. If you go to the... Yeah, so LumaCode here is set to C64, but the OSC is actually supporting Spectrum. There's the Spectrum. So this is the Commodore 64, and it's interpreting it as Spectrum colours. It's also got the ColecoVision MSX, the NES, the Atari GTIA, that's their video chip, isn't it? Atari VCS, and that's it. So the OSC only supports the C64, the Spectrum, the ColecoVision, the NES, and the Atari, 2 Ataris. So it doesn't support everything that was on that other list. Oh, and that's with LumaCode off. It just becomes a black and white signal, kind of. But there we go. So there you go. That's LumaCode. I think that's a really cool idea. Just like a little two-wire digital signal, and then you get something to interpret it. And things are starting to... Well, there's at least 2 devices that can interpret this now. So I think that's really, really cool. Right, I definitely am going to actually leave now, because that was all I wanted to show you, that stuff does actually work, but not necessarily all of these games, as in off this cartridge. But yeah, I'll leave it there. So that's your little Sunday afternoon, what I've been messing with on the Commodore 64. And I'll keep you updated, and I'll see if I can get this. If I get this captured, we'll just be streaming. We'll be live streaming some Commodore 64 stuff, which will be nice for a bit of a change to the Commodore 64. But until then, it's Amiga all the way. So, right then, thanks for stopping in, and I will catch you in a future live stream. See you in the future, people. Let me find the button and can keep talking while I find the end stream button. Ending it now. Ending. Still ending. Still ending.